Especially sauntering guitarist.
I'm Evan. I am the writer and director of the movie. Oh yeah, that's great. We can keep playing it. So first of all, I want to thank you for coming during the hurricane. And I invite all of you to join us over here for a glass of wine and some pretzels as soon as we finish the chat. I want to recognize a couple of people who are here. And I want to, again, I want to thank you for coming in this most difficult of evenings. Sure, I certainly can. So the first thing I want to do is recognize some of the people who are here. I want to say we few, quote the St. Crispin's speech, we happy few. Hey, there's somebody I haven't seen in a long time. Ethan, come on up. We're going to have some actors come up. Come on up. I also want to call up, a lot of people couldn't come because of the weather. People are coming on Tuesday. If you want to come Tuesday, would love to see you again on Tuesday. Terrence Gray is here. Terrence, where are you? Come on up, come on up, come on up. And I thought, here, take a mic. I thought none of the Meyersons were here, but actually the youngest Meyerson is here. My daughter, Talia.
Yeah!
Come on. And as you might imagine, this movie was delayed by COVID. As you can see, the kids who were here are now here. And Talia, the same thing. The kids who were both, you guys were both about here, and now you're both about here.
One more over there.
Oh my God, come on up. I also want to recognize Evan Wood over here, the assistant director. Come on up. Thank you. And I also thank Josh Wood, his brother, for writing a lot of the music. We've got lots of folks up here. And I would like to solicit any questions you guys have for me or for anybody about the movie. Or if you don't have any questions, we could just talk a little more. Or we can go over there and have some wine, and you guys can ask me some questions as we have some wine. Any questions? Any thoughts? Any... Yes?
I thought the order of everything, the order that you did everything was really interesting. How did you make the decision to do that?
So the order is, so it's a number of different stories. It's this family, it's very episodic, and you have this whole family, this New York Jewish family, and then you have things that happened in the past. And then how we put it together was a bit of a challenge. In fact, I'm going to have the editor, Evan Wood, talk about how we decided, because we weren't really sure how we were going to integrate the past into the present.
I had a feeling this question was going to get thrown at me. Thanks, Paige. So yeah, when we make a movie, we start by writing the script, and then we shoot the movie, and then we edit the movie. That's how we decide the order. It just makes sense. That was a joke, everyone. Okay, so a lot of films follow a very common arc. You have a first act, a second act, a third act, and a lot of people compare a really good film to a house of cards. If you take one card away, the whole thing kind of falls apart. If you change the order, the whole thing kind of falls apart. It could also be called like a puzzle, where every piece fits into a specific place. This film was kind of like more of an art piece than a puzzle piece. So we did a lot of experimentation of where to put things around, because as you can imagine with this kind of film, there's a lot of different things that you can do in terms of the order of the scenes, because it wasn't exactly linear in the traditional sense, if that makes any sense. So how exactly we decided to do it? Just a lot of putting things here and there. We watch it and we see how we felt about it emotionally. It was very important to us to feel like there was a sort of a roller coaster of emotions. We wanted something that felt natural. We didn't want too much levity in a row. We didn't want too much heavy emotion in a row. This film has a lot of very philosophical, mind-blowing sort of themes, and we didn't want too many heady scenes in a row. So a lot of it was just figuring out what felt interesting to watch in the order that it felt natural. And then there was the whole thing of the flashback scenes. So it's kind of unusual for like all the flashback scenes in a film to be put into the last third of the film. And we just kind of felt that the film kind of naturally worked its way up into that emotional space. And, you know, we played around with it an awful lot. There's really no easy answer to it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's why it took a long time, because when you're working on one scene, you can work on that scene again and again and again, and you can refine that scene, and it's more technical, the moment by moment thing. But when you're looking at a whole movie and trying to figure out how a whole movie works, you can't do that 5 times in one day. You have to watch the whole movie and try to understand how it's working as a whole. And to do that, you can do that, but if you're going to do it again, you got to wait. You got to wait, you know, a month until you can see it again with fresh eyes. So each scene we could work on for a long time, but when it came to the point of where we wanted to, how we were going to integrate all these different stories and how we were going to put in the flashback scenes, oh yeah, he's putting on the lights. I was supposed to put on the, I messed that up. I was supposed to put on the lights. Yeah, okay. One job and I got it wrong. It's not unusual. So that's why it took a long time to figure that out, and we realized, you know, we had time. We were in no rush. We knew we were making an art film, and a film that we could take our time to make sure we were making the best movie we could. So a question over there.
Well, related to that, I was curious whether you shot some scenes that didn't make it into the movie. Did you shoot more pieces?
So the question is, were there any scenes that didn't make it into the movie? I'm tempted to turn, no, Evan does not want to answer this question. So there was one major element that didn't make it into the movie. We had this woman, well, we don't know if she's homeless. She's a sort of interesting character who's walking around New York City in search of something. And it's not clear what, and it was very metaphorical, what she was looking for. It was intentionally very metaphorical. She's looking for someone we think maybe it's her son, but it's not clear what she's looking for. And she was the framing device. So we started the movie with her, she appeared once or twice, and then she was the end of the movie, and she finds what she's looking for. And I liked it as a metaphor, but it turns out a metaphor doesn't belong in a movie, unless it actually has a plot, a reason for existing in the plot. And this did not have any reason for existing, and unfortunately I had to cut it. I really didn't want to, because I liked it as a metaphor, but it didn't work.
And then a related, not really a related question, but they all seem so real as a family. Real people and the casting, I thought was amazing, because the younger versions of the older.
I noticed.
Really.
Yeah.
I mean, this was right here. This is the best thing. The match with Jackie was fantastic.
But I was wanting to see them together before the big moment of the father coming together.
The whole family. You want to see the whole family together.
How did they interact when it wasn't this big moment?
Well, the funny thing about this movie.
Dynamic of-
Yeah, so no one met each other. Like, none of these people probably ever saw each other during the movie, because there are all these disparate stories that don't yet, the siblings, the family, the central family all comes together at the end. But most people, well, I guess you two were there together. Yeah, you two.
Three, pillow fight.
Oh yeah, Talia was there. Talia
I
was.
was just thinking about the pillow fight. They had to.
That's true. Talia was there too.
Trivia, Talia was sort of a stand-in because actually both days only 2 of the younger versions were there. So we shot the flashback stuff in 2 days, and this was after we shot everything else. Everything else was in the winter. And the funny thing was that in true spirit of how the first part of the shoot went, where none of the family members were actually together for like any of the production, there was a day with, I think the 2 of you were there on the same day, and the other 2 younger versions were there on another day.
That's right. That's right.
4 of them were never in the same place.
So we shot this in 2 sections. We shot the main body of the film in December, and in fact this hurricane is perfect for this movie to come out, because we shot this movie in early December, and somehow, you would think in early December these days in New York, it's mostly warm. It managed to snow on us 3 times in 2 weeks in early December, which was a problem at first, and then we actually utilized it in the movie. We used the snow as, I hate to use the word, as a metaphor at the end. It's a bit of like a James Joyce reference there, Dubliners at the end with the snow falling, and then we used it for the end credits. But it snowed 3 times in 2 weeks in early December, and now today it's a hurricane. So there you go. The weather is messing with us. But I'm sorry, one sec. I was going to say we shot the main body in December, and then we came back in June. We came back in June and shot with these guys. Shot the kids stuff because I wanted to shoot in a different season, so it would feel very different. If we shot the same season, it would have been harder to make it clear this was a different time. Go ahead.
I had trouble trying to really get a clear idea of why the father left. It to me came across as, he was searching for something, he couldn't find it, and why is his solution to leave? I found a gap there.
Yeah. So I could explain. I understand that feeling. I could explain it. I just took my oldest daughter to college. I came back. My wife and I came back this morning from taking our oldest daughter to college. And in fact, she made this bracelet for me about 10 years ago, and I wore it as we took her to St. Louis to college. And there's a sense you get as a parent. As your children age, there's a feeling you get of wanting to freeze the moment and being unable to, and I found it myself to be potentially paralyzing. And so that's what I was working with the dad. If you took that feeling that I think all parents have, but you take it to an unhealthy extreme, that's what he couldn't deal with. He couldn't deal with the passage of time. This movie is about memory, it's about the past and the present, and in his case, the inability to recognize that the future is also hopefully a beautiful thing, but you have to face the fact that things change. You have to face the fact that your kids grow up, and he couldn't do that. So that was the idea. I understand if it didn't work for you as well as I was trying to. It's a tricky concept. Obviously, his version of that is unhealthy, and he recognizes that, and that's why he goes away to try to be able to deal with it, and he was unsuccessful. So the concept of the aliens, which to my chagrin, all of the reviewers seem to mention up front, because it's supposed to be, the movie's not about aliens. It's a movie of ideas, and it's a movie about philosophy, and that provokes a deepening or maybe a twist of philosophical thinking. We don't see the aliens, we're never going to see the aliens. It's just, I guess a lot of this movie was me thinking of characters who I considered interesting, a family that I considered interesting, and then this one thought that I considered interesting, which I thought, well, what would be something that could happen that would potentially change everything? What's the most significant thing that could happen that might change the world? And the first thing I thought of, pandemic.
Yeah.
But that happened. No, the first thing I thought of, there was one thing that could happen that would change everything. The first thing I thought of was, well, if there was proof of the existence or the lack of existence of God. I thought that would be the most important thing, but I didn't know how to handle that. And so the second thing I thought, well, what if there was proof of the existence of aliens? But again, they're not here, they're never going to be here, but just the fact of their existence, how would that change people's lives? Some people's lives, it changes a lot. Some people's lives, it doesn't change at all. But I just thought that was an interesting notion to play with. So in this movie of ideas, that was an idea that I was playing with. You could certainly argue that it doesn't belong in a movie that's really about this family, a very specific New York story, a very small New York story. Then all of a sudden you throw in this very large idea. I wouldn't object if you said, okay, well that seems a bit weird, they're doing these two things at once, but that was, part of what I was trying to do, two very different things at once. And yes, it was always there.
And that's why you filmed it?
And that's why, so those were drone shots. We did, that was a third shoot we did. So there were 3 shoots. The third was the drone shots. And Evan and I did those together with the drone
It was
operators.
back when no one had done that to that point. Believe it or not, we filmed that over 3 years ago, the drone shots. And back then, it was impossible, even for studios, to get drone footage of New York City streets like that. It all was helicopter aerial footage. And we thought we were being so new and novel about it.
These still haven't seen a lot of it.
That's true.
It. You know,
Only in
these-
commercials, yeah.
this drone footage is because you can't get permission to do drone footage. And so they were saying we should do helicopter footage. You can shoot helicopter footage, but helicopter footage looks different. It's higher up and a longer lens. And with the drone footage, you really feel like, I mean, that was, but you're right. That's what the sense I was trying to get across. At first, it's supposed to be more sort of subliminal, like it's an unusual viewpoint. What does it mean? And yes, it is supposed to evoke eventually an alien viewpoint.
Just two quick things. To me, it was God. I mean, because it was
Yeah.
we had a religious band.
Yeah, that too.
So that was what was.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
At some point in the movie, that eye of God kind of shifts into potentially the eye of aliens. Is there a distinction between the two? We don't know. And so that's what I personally, as an editor, found very compelling about that idea.
And then I just wondered if the family and the characters in the family, is it inspired by some real life people or things, or just you kind of created that?
So I come from a family of 4 kids, a New York Jewish family of 4 kids, 2 boys and 2 girls. But other than that, I would say no. But let's get some of the actors answer that question too. If there's something specific about that, I mean, do you think do you bring your family background to that or no? Are you got
Ooh, that's a tough question. I think with
Can't
every,
hear you.
sorry. I think with every character you have to bring a part of yourself. That's how you make them feel real. You have to ground them. And then from there, you start building the world that doesn't really exist. And obviously, I don't come from your family, but I can relate to certain parts of the character. Dealing with my own relationship with my father, with a crazy family. And just letting my mind, play, building the imaginary world on top of that.
Any thoughts? So when you're doing that, do you use your own familial experience, or are you just playing a character?
I think for this role, I was kind of just playing the character. It was different from what my real life is, but I enjoyed being able to try and put myself in the shoes of the character that I played.
I think that's why people love being actors, is they get to be somebody else aside from themselves. So you bring a part of it to that, but you also, just being yourself isn't interesting. You get to play a role. I think that's true.
So I thought that was great, and I thought that the conversations felt very natural and real, and I also thought the casting was amazing in terms of the family. You felt it was a family, you kind of believed it when you were watching it. When you wrote it, or when you casted it, did you have in mind anybody, what they would look like, what the family would be like, or were there just words on a page? Did you say, I need Richard Stein to star in this, or did you have 10 people that could do it? It's always so amazing when you pick it and you hit it, and it seems like you really hit it on this, and you kind of feel like you can relate to everybody in the movie.
Yeah, so that's the question I often get. When you write a role, are you writing it for somebody particular? Do you have somebody in mind? Do you have an image, a vision of somebody in your head? And my answer generally is no. I don't have a specific, I almost never think of a specific actor. Maybe there's some platonic image in my head, but not really. I'm not thinking of a specific person. And very rarely, I meet with my casting director, very rarely she says, well, who do you want? I'm like, I don't know, you give me some ideas. So no, I'm not thinking of a specific person. I will say that sometimes, like with Kate Mulgrew, when we first started casting, the very first thought I had for that role was Kate Mulgrew. And I can't say I wrote it thinking of Kate, because she's not the most obvious person to play a Jewish mother, as she will tell you. So generally the answer is no. You just hope that it all gels. You just never know. You put people together, you guys both with Richard Kind, you didn't know him before those scenes. And, on small movies like mine, you don't get rehearsal time really. I mean, you get a few moments that day, but it's not like you have a week of rehearsals to get to know each other. So you rely on the talent and the natural empathy of the actors to create that relationship, because it's all created in the moment, which is weird because it feels, when it works, it feels so real. If they feel like family, you're like, hold on a second, these people don't really know each other, because you sense as if it works well, you sense that they really do, but that's just talent and hard work.
I actually have a question for all of the actors. Because I think this is the first time, if I'm not mistaken, that you've all seen it, right? So, what is that experience like being an actor when you see something for the first time that when you're doing it, it's a very different experience than when you see something that's finished on a screen.
Because it's been such a long time.
And especially since it's been a long time. But what does it feel like after watching yourself in something, from doing the experience of doing it to seeing it on a screen? How did it feel watching it, and what is, what's your impressions of that experience?
Terrence, Terrence has been in a bunch of my movies. I think this is the fourth movie you've been in mine. I always utilize his skills.
You're so great, perfect. You're just perfect.
Great foil.
I thought I looked thinner on screen, so that was a surprise. No, I mean, it was freezing, and my eyes were watering the whole day, so I thought it was going to look terrible, so I thought you cut me very well. Thank you, Evan. I appreciate that. It's always weird. I don't think any actor really loves to watch themselves. You want to do it and prepare, and you make the connection with your scene partner, and you want it to be good, but it's painful to watch, especially when you're in a room with other people. But I thought it looked great. It was shot really well, and it was a fun project to work on, but it was like guerrilla filmmaking. It was freezing, and we were out in the elements, and people were watching us, and the police chased us out of one place. So you get a lot to work with. You're not really thinking about it, you're just doing it. And so to see it, I thought some of the comments, it's very conversational. I felt every scene was very conversational. It's very easy when I work with Ian Conn on all my scenes.
Talia, let's have
You have a great Italian accent.
So I feel like, I really was able to critique myself, especially since I feel like I've grown a lot as an actor in 3 years. I just don't think that was my best work. I feel like it was one of my first times acting. And I just, going back at it, I did a lot better than I thought I was gonna do. But I just don't feel like it was the best me, and I feel like everybody feels like that, especially since this came out a lot later than we thought it was going to be. Maybe if a year ago, I probably would have thought better about it, but just it did not go so well. I mean,
You were great.
I was
It's exactly what it wanted to be.
Yeah.
Welcome to the actor's life. Oh yeah, I'm so terrible.
I've watched so many hours of this film editing. So I was the first assistant director, so I was on set for the whole production. I scheduled the shoot, and then I edited it, which never happens, by the way. Only a crazy person would allow me to do that. But I watched so many hours, and I have to say, I thought initially, working on a film for as long as we did in post-production, I would be gouging my eyes out, watching the same thing over and over. And every version, we get it back from the sound mixer or the color corrector, whatever the colorist. I would proof watch the whole movie. And so you can imagine with every small tweak, watching this with a laser focus to see if there's anything wrong. Every time I watched the movie, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed every bit of it. Your scenes, even your scenes. Great job.
So I invite you, any other questions at the moment? Yes.
It's more of a comment, less of a question, but there were so many, just about the writing, there were so many big questions that were posed and that made us all feel so small, potentially, right? And then in the end, that it all matters, I thought just was a brilliant ending.
Thank you, and I have to give total credit to Kate Mulgrew for that, because we were talking about I mentioned about how there was this framing device that was supposed to be there, this metaphorical framing device. And even it was in there when we shot, but Kate said that that last scene with her and Richard Kind, it didn't have that line of dialogue, and she and I were sitting having lunch and we're discussing it, and she said, I think it needs something more. And when someone like Kate Mulgrew says that, you listen, if you're smart. And I looked at the scene and I realized she was right, it needed a punctuation at the end. I just felt like bringing them together was enough, and having them see each other, and you know, I mean, the two of them together, they don't have to say anything and it's a great scene, right? But she felt like it needed a bit of punctuation at the end. And so I went home and I wrote that very brief line where she says, everything matters, all of it. And then that sort of sums up the whole movie. And that wouldn't exist if she hadn't told me that we needed something like that. So
Not for that line addition, without the other final scene that was originally there in the script that we cut, it would have been very challenging to figure out what punctuation do we end this film on.
Yeah.
That made it easy.
But she was absolutely right. And this is, you know, the smartest thing I can do as a director is to listen to the actors, because they're looking at it from a different perspective, you know, a specific perspective that I don't have. And so it's very helpful for me to listen to that perspective and make adjustments based on that. So, yes?
So it's always interesting to me when a director puts himself in the film, like a cameo. Somehow like that, and you change your accent too. So
yeah, so I always like to be in my movies for 5 seconds, because it shows me. So there's two parts of filmmaking. There's the cast and the crew, and they really don't understand each other. I mean, they're just coming at it from very different perspectives. Neither side really understands the other's job. I mean, the cast, I think, sure, they theoretically understand, you know, they could say, okay, well, the gaffer does this and the grip does this, but they haven't done the job, and so they naturally don't understand it. And from the crew's perspective, it seems very easy to be an actor, right? They just go up there and pretend. It's super easy. I gotta carry something heavy. That's a real job. So, you know, for me, being on the other end of things, kind of looking at the actors, you know, it's helpful to all of a sudden be on the other side of the camera and remember what it's like to have all of that weight on you, to have all of that pressure. It's such a hard job, and it's so easy to forget because good actors make it look so easy. You know, it just seems like they're not trying, and in reality, you know, every iota of their being is in this, you know. So that's why I like to do that, just for a second, to have all the lights and the camera on me, to feel that, to understand what that's like. Very briefly, you know, I don't want to be on for more than 5 seconds. I brought back, that's a guy I played in one of my earlier movies, a little game I played, this chess teacher, this Russian chess teacher. So I brought him back. I brought the Russian chess, and then the bagel guy is also from another one of my movies, Jay. So I brought these two characters back for, you know, for no particular reason really.
How important was the picking of locations? I recognize a lot of places that are close to my heart, like Parking Creek Point, of course, Union Square. How important those decisions were to you? Was it just accidental?
So a lot of them are very close to, we live on Union Square. So I was coming out of a very complicated movie that we shot in Italy that was very big and challenging. So I wanted to make a really small, I don't want to say easy, but like movie that I could wrap my arms around simply. So we decided to shoot as much as possible within a couple blocks of where I live in Union Square. So almost all those scenes were in that neighborhood. Now the flashback stuff we shot in Brooklyn. We were based in a friend of mine's place in Prospect Heights, as you guys know, and then we were in Prospect Park as well. The Greenpoint stuff was just this one scene that was there. But most of it, really the idea was, how close to Union Square can we shoot this? And you know, it was good. It's nice to be as contained as possible when you're shooting a small movie and have it all be as close as it could be. So that was the idea.
I have one question actually for you. I actually really would love to know. Every film has an unforeseen challenge. You think when you do every time you do a film, you always find something, you're faced with something you hadn't been faced with before. That's what always keeps it interesting. What in this film did you find as a challenge that came up that you weren't expecting?
Well, I was going to say the snow, but otherwise I'm going to give it to this guy.
That's a cheap shot. Challenge
challenge that we weren't expecting? I don't really know. I mean,
COVID.
yeah, I mean, if anything, it really just, the biggest challenge was in post-production of just sort of navigating this process during the pandemic. Kind of slowed things down. In a sense, it gave us time to take a bit of a step back from the film and come back into it with fresh eyes. Of course, at that point, we were kind of already picture locked, so there wasn't a whole lot that we could do to change things. But it definitely gave us a renewed perspective on the meaning of the film and what we were kind of going for in terms of what, I don't know, what sort of approach we want to take with getting the film out there and how we like to frame it. In terms of the production, though, I would just say that the most challenging thing wasn't unexpected at all. It was just sort of this renegade filmmaking that we were doing with a small crew in the dead of winter, waking up 4:30 a.m., you know, filming until the sun started to go down. That was all the time we had for daylight because there's no nighttime scenes here. And just cramming it all together into a really short period of time and just getting these takes. And as the editor who was also the AD, I learned very directly the consequences of my own tightening of the screws on the schedule. So, you know, he would ask me, can I go for another take? And I'd say, one more, and then maybe it was okay. Maybe we really needed one more, but I said, no, we have to move on to the next scene. And then as I'm editing that, when I really need that one more take, which would have been perfect, would have helped us a lot, oops. So, it's not really a great answer.
Yeah. I think it is a great answer. And I think, yeah, I think we knew what we were doing. We knew we were making a small, artsy, weird film, and it took a while for us to get it where we wanted it to. But I think
that was expected, though. Those were
yeah.
expected challenges.
No, we knew we had time, and we took the time, and you know, you don't want to rush it because it's going to be around forever. So when you're done, it's done. So I always feel like take as much time as you want, and don't. And I have the luxury of take as much time as I need, and so I'm happy with that. All right, let's get some wine over here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.